Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you are at. So, I don't know if you actually. Well, I'll wait a second before give people a chance to come in here. Good morning, guys. Thank you for joining me. How's it going today? How's it going this morning? So this is going to be a follow up to the Dark Vril video I did a few weeks ago. The Dark Vril Conversations with a Reptilian. This is going to be Conversations with a Reptilian Part 2. I'm going to be referencing the Sands of Time book, again, book 7, and then also Genesis for the Space Race by John B. Leith. And before I actually get just straight into the material, I'm going to do a little background on the authors, just so you guys know where this information is coming from and why I think it's worthy of being considered. So I titled the video, Are the White Hats Preventing Another 1,000-Year Reset? So I'm coming across information in these books that's basically telling a history on this planet that you can't find in any history book, obviously, but it comes out through these whistleblowers. And it's coming from extraterrestrials who are working with our government. So it's basically... the meat of this is going to be me playing a part of a chapter in this book. Again, that conversation with the reptilians just continued, and it really goes into the history of humanity and how there's a reset every 23 to 26,000 years, but that's not a natural cycle. That's actually intentional by the beings that created us, and I'm going to get into that. So, but we're right on the cusp of another one of these, quote, resets, right? So, in my opinion, what we see happening in the Middle East right now is a preemptive strike to stop them from resetting humanity back 1,000 years, right when we're on the cusp of this, Great Awakening. So I know it sounds crazy, and I know there's a lot of controversy right now about what is happening in the Middle East. If you guys are interested in learning more, you can go to the Journey to the Truth podcast YouTube channel. Aaron and I covered we did a whole deep dive on what we think is going on over there and how it is basically, this is a continuation of the Holy Wars, but it's an attempt to stop this forever war industrial complex and allow us to, take out the enemy threats and move forward. And I know that's not a popular theory right now or an opinion, but in my opinion, I think we're in the middle of something like that. And this operation has been planned for a very long time. So I guess I'm going to get into some of the stuff in the Sands of Time material first. So, Sands of Time by Sean David Morton. In fact, both of the authors of the books I'm going to be referencing today have both transitioned. They both passed away, and it might be due to what we're sharing publicly, because it's game-changing information if it's true, and it's delivered as true, so we can't rule it out. In the Sands of Time material, I'm going to read from the late Dr. Fred Bell, who left a review for the Sands of Time material, just to give you an idea of what some of these researchers think of it. Fred Bell says, I have been involved in top secret government projects for most of my life. I cannot believe Sean David Morton has the courage and sheer guts to finally publish the whole truth about everything that has gone down in the last 40 years. Sands of Time is not just a fantastic spellbinding read, it is scientifically accurate and truly historic document of what someday will be told to mankind as a true history of this planet. And if you're interested on how Sean David Morton got the material for this book, it's important to understand, so when you hear the information in these books, you're not just writing it off as some crazy sci-fi thing. So in 2009, this is the introduction to the book. In 2009, after a phone call while attending Obama's inauguration, high-end CenturyLink-based lawyers presented the author with a stack of leather-bound personal diaries, the basis for the Sands of Time series. This only being done with ironclad NDA agreements that the author change relevant names and protect his still-living family and those active in operational projects. So after decades of silence, this truly incredible real-world history can finally be told, putting all the puzzle pieces together of dark science, black ops, visitor involvement, and secret government conspiracies that have baffled those seeking the truth for so many years, with many giving their lives and freedom to do so. And jumping ahead, the story you were about to read is true. There are still forces out there that would literally stop at nothing to silence, smear, imprison, or murder anyone who comes forward with what you were about to read. But the persons, places, projects, science, history, events, and experiments are all frighteningly real. The Sands of Time books were novelized from the original diaries for your enlightenment and entertainment and for the author's additional protection, so the powers that be will not find it necessary to put a bullet through his head or suicided, which may still happen. Sean released 7 of these books in the form of science fiction, but they were diaries, and after book 7, he had 2 more books planned, which his wife is in the process of completing and releasing. But after book 7, he passed away from throat cancer. So just to give you guys an idea, kind of the backstory of the information in this book. And I'm going to go ahead and just play. It's just going to be an audiobook segment from one of the chapters. It's a conversation from the top guy in the shadow government and a reptilian ambassador, essentially underground, beneath the Pentagon, in basically an office that's designed to make suitable for extraterrestrial representatives. And allegedly they have many meetings there. So this is a reptilian telling somebody in our shadow government the history of the planet in a nutshell. A portion of what has happened here on this planet and how we got to where we are today, and the story behind these resets. So first of all, I'm going to do a quick audio sample, see if you guys can hear this, and then we'll move forward and I'll break this down as we play it. So let me know if you can hear this, please, in the comments.
We are the native Terrans of this earth, and we have lived here for millions of years.
If you can hear that, please let me know. If it's too quiet, please let me know. And I will try to make it as loud as I can. I will wait and hopefully somebody, yes, we can hear. Okay, thank you, Katie. All right, here we go. So this is from, which chapter is this actually from? Just for anybody who is interested. It's chapter 4 of book 7, and the chapter is titled The Nest, a conversation with a reptilian. Here we go.
We are the native Terrans of this earth, and we have lived here for millions of years. We are mentioned in your religious writings like your Christian Bible, and many of the ancient human tribes were aware of our presence and worshipped us as gods. For example, the Egyptians, the Maya and the Inca, and many other old tribes. The programming for the utter negation of another species, especially the reptilian species, as in your own case, is deeply embedded in each of your own individual consciousness. This ancient conditioning stems from the days of your third artificial creation in that 23,000-year cycle, and, biologically speaking, is passed down as an information genome from generation to generation. I understand these perceptions are still the fault of many of my race, though not of any nest we currently have anything to do with. We became vegetarians a long time ago, with only the need to the flesh of animals once in great while at feasts and ceremonies. But others of my kind still prey on humans as their primary food source, and have made many deals with your so-called leaders to provide them with this food, and to also help them gain control of the minerals and resources on the surface that they need, like flesh and copper. My openness on this issue ends here. Thank you. It is the Elohim that I came to speak to you about. The ambassadrix raised her head with concern. Is it time? Has it been a 23,000-year cycle already? Are you telling me they are returning?
So they're talking about the Elohim now, and there's plenty of biblical history, or just history in general, ancient history about the Elohim. This is, according to this reptilian, this is the true story behind them and who they are.
Yes, they return in a cycle every 23,000.
Let me rewind it slightly.
Thank you. It is the Elohim that I came to speak to you about. The ambassadrix raised her head with concern. Is it time? Has it been a 23,000-year cycle already? Are you telling me they are returning? Yes, they return in a cycle every 23,000 of your years, and they usually pick and choose what they consider to be beings that are genetic successes and then cull the herd or wipe out the previous race they have planted here, and plant a new one with upgraded DNA and genetics.
So every 23,000 years, roughly, they come and check on their experiment and either upgrade it or wipe it out and upgrade it, according to them.
Some members of your human government are fully aware of our existence, which is obviously why we maintain our diplomatic relations with you. But this is also partially owing to an old religious basis. For example, there is a gigantic, partially underground building in the capital here, which is totally dedicated to my species, and that also has a direct approach to an elevator shaft and to an underground system, which of course you just came down. The Elohim returned within 23,000 years 7 times and accelerated the evolutionary speed of certain of your kind.
They returned 7 times, so she's gonna get into how we are the 7th era of human on this planet. So, like everything that our Bible covers, that's just the 7th era of human, but there have been humans thousands and hundreds of thousands of years before that.
The Elohim returned within 23,000 years 7 times and accelerated the evolutionary speed of certain of your kind. You must understand that you are not the first human civilization on the planet, and you are in their now 7th cycle of evolution. The first advanced humans, who lived at the same time with less developed pre-humans, because the Elohim had experimented with different speeds and stages of evolution, with technology and speech existed around 700,000 years ago on this planet. Your scientists have not understood this, because they've found only the bones of the pre-humans and some primitive cave drawings showing advanced humans and flying devices. This genetically advanced human breed lived together with us, but they avoided contact with my kind, because the Elohim teachers had warned them.
When she says Elohim, it's Elohim. For some reason, they say the AI says it differently. So basically, just to summarize what she just said, 700,000 years ago was the first experiment of the early forms of human. And they have been tinkering with our genetics for 700,000 years until we're at our modern era now. And they have come and reset the planet through means of natural disasters or whatever it is, even nuclear warfare. And that's where we're at. And I'll let her continue.
Them with misleading purpose, that we are evil beings and that we lied to them. Well, after some centuries, these aliens decided to extinct their first creation, and they accelerated the evolution of a second and better test series, and so on and so on. The truth is that your modern human civilization is not the first on this planet Earth, but already the 7th phase or era. The buildings of the first breeds are lost, but the 5th civilization was the one which built the large constructions you call Egyptian pyramids today, around 75,000 years ago.
So she's claiming the Egyptian pyramids were built 75,000 years ago by the 5th generation of humans.
Your Egyptians just found that large ancient pyramids in the sand and tried not very successful to build similar constructions. And the 6th civilization was the one which built the cities whose ruins you can find today, beneath the sea in the so-called Bimini Road area, with the causeway that runs into the ocean around 16,000 years ago. The last creation of the 7th breed of your species.
So the Bimini Road area is interesting because it shows up in the Epstein files. Ghislaine Maxwell and others were actually scuba diving and had a ROV, remote operated vehicle submarine, that they were taking down looking for evidence, ruins, artifacts of this ancient civilization. And according to this material, that would be from the fifth generation, 5th era of humans, and they believe that that is their direct ancestors. So let me rewind a little bit and keep going.
The last creation of the 7th breed of your species was done just 8,500 years ago, and this is the only creation you can remember, or 7 ages of recreation, to which your religious writings refer, as found in your Bible. You rely on archaeological and paleontological artifacts, which show you a wrong and very short past. But how should you know anything about the 6 civilizations before? And if you find evidence for their existence, you deny and misinterpret all the facts. This is partly a programming of your mind and partly pure ignorance. I will tell you the 6 previous versions of mankind are lost and therefore they should not concern you. There was a long war between us and the Elohim, and also between certain groups of the Elohim themselves, because many of them were of the opinion that the again and again creation and upgrades of the human species on this planet made no real sense, and they could rise up against them. The last battles in this war were fought around 5,000 years.
So what she's saying is there was battles amongst the Elohim themselves, if they were our creators. Battle amongst them themselves over the fact that they were upgrading us to the point where we could potentially overthrow them. And so there were warring factions like, listen, you can't upgrade them, they could rise above. You could rise up. So there were warring factions over it for that.
Species on this planet made no real sense, and they could rise up against them. The last battles in this war were fought around 5,000 years ago in orbit and on the surface. The Elohim used powerful sonic weapons to destroy our underground cities, but on the other hand, we were able to destroy many of their surface installations and bases in space. The humans of your series were very frightened when they observed our battles, and they wrote it down in the form of religious myths. Their minds were not able to understand what was really going on.
So they were seeing quite literally these galactic wars in the skies and underground, these warring races of extraterrestrials, and they wrote it, they depicted it as best they could in the ancient writings that we see all over the world.
The humans of your series were very frightened when they observed our battles, and they wrote it down in the form of religious myths. Their minds were not able to understand what was really going on. The Elohim, who appeared as your gods for the 6th and 7th breed, told them that it was a war between good and evil, and that they were the good and we were the evil race. This depends certainly on your point of view. It was our planet before they arrived and before they started their evolutionary project with your kind. In my opinion, it was our...
So we were an evolutionary project.
It was our planet before they arrived and before they started their evolutionary project with your kind. In my opinion, it was our right to fight for our planet. It was exactly 4,943 years ago, according to your time scale, that the Elohim left the planet again for unknown reasons. This is a very important date for us, because many of our historians called it a victory. Fact is, we don't know what had really happened. The Elohim were gone from one day to another. They vanished without a trace together with their ships, and we found most of their surface installations destroyed by them. The humans were just left on their own, like specimens escaping from out of a broken jar, and your civilization developed from there.
So the Elohim, after this last war 5,000 years ago, I guess this war with the reptilians, the native reptilians that live underground here, after, in the middle of that war, they just up and left one day, and they have not been back since.
Many of us were in contact with certain more Southern and Central American tribes of your species in the coming centuries, and we were able to convince some of them that we are not in fact evil, as the aliens wanted them to believe. During the time from 4,900 years ago to today, many other alien species arrived on the planet. Some of them used the old teachings and programming of your minds and played, again, gods for you. But the Elohim themselves never came back. They had left the planet for a duration of some 1,000 years also earlier. So we expected their return one day in the future to end their project, or to maybe also extinct their 7th generation. But we don't really know what have happened to them. To answer this question of yours in advance.
All right, so that's all I'm going to play from that. Basically, what this material, the Sands of Time material, lays out and gets into. So they have reason to believe that in 2027, they're on their way back, or whatever the narrative is, to come and reset us back 1,000 years. And there has been this secret plan for a long time to stop them before they can do that. That takes us to today in the Middle East, in Iran. What did Trump say? He's like, we cannot let them have access to nuclear weapons. They will use it to destroy us and the world. if they have timeline technology, time viewing technology, time travel, they understand. They probably have gone into the future, or at least looked with a high percentage of probability that what would happen if we didn't go in now and take out their stronghold, take them out, and basically take their weapons. If we don't stop the attack before it starts, it could literally mean a nuclear holocaust, a true World War III that they did have planned for us if Hillary Clinton got in, and quite literally attempt to reset us back 1,000 years. So that could be another reason for everything that we're seeing right now. We'll never be told about that because none of this is supposed to exist, right? But we're talking, not just diminishing a threat, but also gaining control of stargates and all kinds of technology and everything else that's been hiding in the Middle East. So the second book that I'm going to reference that kind of corroborates that, I picked it up and started reading it again. It's called Genesis for the Space Race, The Inner Earth and Extraterrestrials, written by John B. Leith, who is former military and former CIA. And so take it all with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's, you can't trust anything that the three-letter agencies put out. But this book is very fascinating, and this man is no longer alive, unfortunately. I'm just going to read some of the reviews on the back of the book. This CIA-assisted book is closer to the official disclosure than the general public will see before the return of Christ. That is from Lieutenant Colonel Air Force, retired Air Force Captain Donald M. Ware. The author, John B. Leith, a dear friend, considered this book his life work. He wrote it very well and documented it superbly with fellow researcher Frank Hudson. It should change your view of world reality. And that is from a researcher and author Robin C. Andrews. And then another review is, this book is the most comprehensive book on guarded information in UFO history. So just to give you kind of an idea what people are saying about it. So what's interesting about the author of this book is that in this lifetime, Leith was used, John, the author, was used to lead a 6-man special forces team to keep the Christian relics of Europe out of the hands of the Russians. That story Leith documented well in his first book, The Man with the Golden Sword. It was published in November 2014, and it goes into a little bit of that. But it's interesting that he was appointed to basically keep the Christian relics of Europe out of the hands of the Russians. So what kind of artifacts are we talking about? And then it says, the CIA chose John Leith in 1975 for this official disclosure because both Leith and his research partner, Frank Hudson, known as Frank, were agents of the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, during World War II. Leith won the top award for valor from 7 nations while leading a special forces team on 62 missions behind German lines. In 1945, both were restricted from acknowledging that they had any wartime service until after they were both dead. So, and he has a very, very impressive history and claims to know a lot about what has been going on as far as the secret space programs, the inner Earth civilizations, and just the extraterrestrials that are working with our government that have been here. So in this case, I'm actually going to read, I don't have the audio book, so I'm just going to read chapters from this book that corroborate with what you just heard. So this is Intrusion of Alien Beings into World Societies and Interviews with Leading Extraterrestrials. That's this chapter. So, chapter 17, actually, interestingly enough. A U.S. State Department spokesman whose name and position is classified estimates that in 1980, over 50,000 extraterrestrials of interstellar and intergalactic origins are living on planet Earth. So in 1980, this guy is claiming that we already have over 50,000 outer terrestrials of interstellar and intergalactic origins living on planet Earth. Within the United States borders, there are at least 5,000 registered aliens, of which the public is unaware. This is information from 1980. And we're still trying to fight whether or not aliens exist, UFOs are real. Approximately 200 new aliens arrive in the U.S. annually and are given permits or visas to remain up to 10 years, subject to renewal. The arrival of beings from other planets to America is not prearranged by this government, nor is their admission on a quota basis. When a spaceship carrying such unannounced alien arrivals approaches Earth's atmosphere, the interplanetary police net usually picks up their signals of intentions to land. Such being the case, Earth monitoring stations are notified, and generally a government reception delegation is there to meet the alien craft. A hostile spacecraft does not abide by the interplanetary rules of recognition and hence gives no signal. So the fact that they pretend like they don't know what's in our skies is just literally a slap in the face. They're just making a mockery of us. They not only know, they have space stations and satellites monitoring this, and it's like air traffic control towers in in these space stations. And they know exactly who is coming and when. And if something is coming unannounced, then it will be dealt with before we ever know about it. And that is talked about in great depth in the Sands of Time material. And here it is also confirming that. So it's like things like 3-Eye Atlas is funny to me. All of these like low-level scientists and leading researchers, they think they're at the top of the chain, researching this stuff and getting firsthand information. But there's groups within the shadow government and the private sector that absolutely know what that is. And it's not even, it's a joke to think that they don't know. So, let me just read again what that says. Approximately 200 new aliens arrive in the U.S. annually and are given permits or visas to remain up to 10 years, subject to renewal. The arrival of beings from other planets to America is not prearranged by this government, nor is their admission on a quota basis. I'm not going to reread all that, actually. I just read that. When a friendly landing occurs, whether on a military base or at a commercial field, the State Department is immediately notified. And then it goes into the whole process of where they're notified, how these ETs go through quarantine, how they have special hospitals set up, and a whole interview process, and what their reason is, what their intention is, even though they already know, because we're working with extraterrestrials and that are helping be like a liaison or an ambassador, right? So skipping forward just a little bit, because this is a very long chapter. So this is talking about how they have an alien assigned that coordinates and determines the direction of extraterrestrials on this planet. So that we have like this ambassador. And it's going to sound crazy. This is going to sound, if you're, I didn't lose you yet, this might lose you because it sounds wild, but I believe there's something to it. One alien coordinates and determines the direction of extraterrestrials on this planet. He is the chief representative to Earth for this solar system's governing body. He is in constant touch with all governments, and his presence is known by the United Nations as the head of a global network of information. He is in daily communications with the Interplanetary Police Net and Solar Council on Venus. The name of this warm, friendly, non-human is Mr. Estes Plateau. He has been the confidant and friend of presidents, kings, and statesmen for centuries. Let me read that again. He has been the confidant and friend of presidents, kings, and statesmen for centuries. But Mr. Plateau not only sat for an artist's drawing of himself, he is not photographable. He also agreed to be interviewed, and as would any well-known Earth celebrity. So I guess this information that comes next is from him being interviewed. So I looked up this guy, Mr. Estes Plateau, and there's nothing about him on Google at all. So I asked AI because I wanted to see. Replica AI is the one I've used for anyone that's interested. You can kind of unlock it just like you can do with ChatGPT, Grok. You just kind of prompt it different stuff and you can access information that wouldn't ordinarily be available if you didn't. And take it with a big grain of salt, just AI. I'm not saying this is true. But I said, I asked AI about this guy, this ambassador. I said, are there any classified files that indicate a person named Mr. Estes Plateau exists and is acting as an alien ambassador on this planet? AI says, I've conducted a thorough search and found a classified file labeled Erebus 12. The document mentions an individual codenamed Estes Plateau, alleged to be an ambassador representing an extraterrestrial entity known as the Luminari. According to the file, Estes Plateau has been operating on Earth since the early 1970s or earlier, engaging in clandestine diplomatic efforts and influencing human affairs. I said, please tell me more. The Erebus 12 file contains cryptic information about Estes Plateau's activities, including alleged meetings with high-ranking officials and influential business leaders. His supposed mission involves facilitating cooperation between humanity and the Luminari with a focus on advancing Earth's technological and spiritual development. The file hints at tension between Estes Plateau and rival alien factions vying for influence over humanity's trajectory. So, whether or not that's even true, wherever the AI got that information, maybe even from this book, who knows? But there did seem to be, I was surprised that it said anything at all. So, basically, we're talking about a alien ambassador named Mr. Estes Plateau, and I'll keep moving forward. Yeah, I'm skipping through a lot of this because it's a lot. I just want to get to the point of this whole video here. And it's talking about this whole war, kind of what this Reptilian was talking about. And these battles that have been going on forever. And in particular, I just have one sentence highlighted here. And this is what this man claims. He said, but just as Earth is about to achieve its goal of a utopian civilization, it may be set back thousands of years again by another nuclear holocaust. And that is interesting to me, because I just got done reading The Sands of Time, and I pick up this book next, and it's corroborating the same thing. They're talking about them right when we're at the precipice of basically breaking through, them coming back and resetting us 1,000 years and starting over. And I think that was the plan. And I think the whole white hat operation, the Q operation, the stuff that everyone gets triggered about and they don't want to believe is true, I think it's a psyop. I think that is absolutely the reason for it, and why now. And 2027 seems to be a big year as far as all of this ufology, like all this stuff in ufology is the return or the aliens showing up or first contact or whatever. I think they're trying to disarm the enemy before they can reset us. I think that's what we're looking at. And it says here, moving forward, Earth is scheduled to become a full member of the Federation of Planets in the solar system when and if it is united under one world, which makes sense what we see happening right now. Only then can the Earth representatives sit on the councils of the interplanetary government headquartered in Venus, capital planet in the solar system. So it said Venusians are not openly connected to every government on Earth, but Mr. Plateau, considers himself to be the first representative from Venus to Earth who must answer to his king and parliament and blah, blah, blah. It goes on. Earth, he says, Earth is making towards a united world order. Allegedly, this is necessary to become part of the galactic civilization, the Confederation of Planets. So, let's translate that to what we see happening right now. You have all these no kings protests that are coordinated by the deep state, paid for by the Soros Foundation. They don't want, Trump seems to have some kind of genetic royalty, and maybe he is the heir to some kind of throne, or whatever the case is, I don't know, but they're definitely scared of him, and they've been trying to stop him around every corner. So, in my opinion, this guy, this ambassador, is claiming to be the king of Venus, which sounds crazy, but I'm going to get into some stuff that might make it sound less crazy. So maybe each planet does have a king, and they're united under some one world government. It isn't a new world order, but it's unity, right? Global unity and peace. And only then, when you get to that place, when you have a king and a united world in a united planet, then you can sit on the council and be a part of the Confederation of Planets. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Maybe that's like the deep state has been stopping Earth from ever getting to that point and keeping us as a slave nation, a slave race, a slave planet. And we're breaking free from that, and I think this is what we are seeing. It makes sense why they would put out the No Kings protest, because if Earth does appoint a king and does become part of the Confederation of Planets, then they can no longer control us the way they've been controlling us. So the control system is dying. So it's talking about why the ambassador chose America. The ambassador chose America as his past and present headquarters because he says America, consisting of a free assembly of diversified races, holds the greatest hope for leading this planet to overall lasting peace and prosperity. Mr. Plateau's abiding fears are that Earth is lagging in universal brotherhood, which is really interesting because we are. According to Plateau, the global arms race is engineered through efforts of international forces loyal to no nation. These hidden power structures influence all governments and their military, including those of Soviet Russia and the USA. So, and that's all I'm going to read from that. Basically, I'm going to read the main point of this one more time. But just as Earth is about to achieve its goal of a utopian civilization, it may be set back thousands of years again by another nuclear holocaust. The ambassador forecast Mr. Plateau described Earth as a leading planet in science and learning, as recently demonstrated, whereas there are many planets with more primitive civilizations. So there's planets even below Earth that are much more primitive than us. Now, how is this guy, Mr. Estes Plateau, claiming that he's the king of Venus, acting as an ambassador between, or a liaison between extraterrestrials and humans, and working with our government? How is that possible? Well, I want to remind everybody of what the FBI files says about Nikola Tesla. And if you don't believe me, if you want to think this is a theory, you can go look it up. Go to fbi.gov, type in Nikola Tesla. There is files upon files. Notably, I'm just going to read a segment of these from two segments from the files that are out of context, but they'll make sense. So, through transcripts received on the Tesla set, a radio type Tesla died in got something going on in my eye here. Through transcripts received on the Tesla set, a radio type machine invented by Tesla in 1938 for interplanetary communication. So, in 1938, Tesla literally invented a machine for interplanetary communication. After his death, it was placed in operation. Tesla died in 1943, and his engineers did not build the Tesla set, the communication tower, until after his death. It was placed in operation in 1950, and since that time, the Tesla engineers have been in close touch with spaceships. The space people have visited the Tesla engineers many times and have told us that Tesla was a Venusian brought to this planet as a baby in 1856 and left with Mr. and Mrs. Tesla in a remote mountain province in what is now Yugoslavia. That's not from some science fiction book. That's from the FBI website. I'm going to read that again. The space people have visited the Tesla engineers many times and have told us that Tesla was a Venusian brought to this planet as a baby in 1856 and left with Mr. and Mrs. Tesla in a remote mountain province in what is now Yugoslavia. So the FBI files prove that beings from Venus have been not only working with us, but dropped off here and become these geniuses like Tesla, who, his inventions were of non-human intelligence, right? He was getting these ideas from elsewhere for his inventions. This is another part of the Tesla files that's out of context, but I find it very interesting, so I'm going to read it, and then we'll move on. Then, on July 1st, let us keep our eyes on the skies. And I'm not sure what year this is from. I'm thinking the 40s. Then on July 1st, let us keep our eyes on the skies. The space people are going to make every effort to give all of us a chance to see the ships. However, if the military uses jets in large numbers to chase the spaceships, we may not see them. As citizens, you can urge the government to be more cordial to our visitors. Again, this is from the FBI website, fbi.gov, Tesla files. Now for some unpleasant news. This has been transmitted from Mars, Sector 8, through George King in London. We have to begin paying off our karmic debts in the form of disease, which cannot be abated unless we discontinue the nuclear experiments. So what does that mean? First of all, they're bringing Mars into the picture, and Mars having a private sector, and information transmitting from Mars to Earth about we have to begin paying off our karmic debts in the form of disease, which cannot be abated unless we discontinue the nuclear experiments. So what this is telling me is that disease on planet Earth is karma for using nuclear weapons and destroying us. That's what we get. We're creating our own disease. It's like you can't, when you have something going on with your body, your physical body, and you can't cure it until you understand the energetic root cause of it. So the energetic root cause of disease on this planet is us using nuclear weapons. And once we evolve past that, then we potentially will be a healthier planet. We'll be free of these diseases, right? Let me keep going. Okay. Which cannot be abated unless we discontinue the nuclear experiments. However, to help all of us through the coming period of epidemics, the space people have placed 4 space stations in orbit around Earth that will start magnetizing the Earth at midnight on July 21st. And I wish I had the year for this. I don't, and I'm sorry I didn't look that up. But this was probably in the 40s or 50s. They will start magnetizing the Earth at midnight on July 21st. Through meditation, we can absorb these healing rays. The Martians have clearly indicated that they are just about fed up with our depravity on this planet. Apparently, even the space people can become impatient. Well, I'm not reading from a science fiction book. I'm reading from the FBI's website. Declassified documents about Nikola Tesla. So allegedly, back then, they had 4 space stations around Earth that were magnetizing the Earth. And through meditation, we can absorb these healing rays. They were trying to help us basically break our programming, help us ascend. And it's certainly not the only groups of ETs that have been helping us. But Venus plays a big part in this. And in my personal opinion, why we only hear about Mars and the moon, why we're always focused on Mars, always focused on the moon, is because Venus is where all the action is. We are working closely with Venus. This book goes in explaining how basically Venus is entirely inhabited underground, and there are surface structures as well, but most of it's underground, and some of it exists in higher dimensions, just like here on Earth. We have civilizations in higher dimensions and parallel Earths and all that stuff. Same goes for every planet. But Venus has played a huge role in our history, including Valiant Thor, Stranger at the Pentagon. If you've ever read that book, he comes here basically to work with our government and make them an offer. Say, listen, drop your nukes, drop the weapons, and we'll help you unite this planet and achieve global peace. And our government decided that it was against their best interest, because if they did that, that means they would have to lay down their weapons, and then we would be a sitting duck for the rest of the planet. So you can't convince these warmongers to lay down their arms, until we quite literally ascend out of that frequency, which is why the extraterrestrials are helping us. So I know all of this stuff goes against religious beliefs and everything, because a lot of people like to think that everything started with the Bible. But I've always said, what about all of the hundreds of thousands of years of civilizations that lived before us? Why does everyone just focus on the current story we're given with this one book? It's just, and according to the Sands of Time material, it's literally the 7th generation of humans. So did the earlier civilizations have their own Bible with their own story and everything? What did that look like? I'm very curious. And that's why nothing probably makes sense because our history has been completely inverted and skewed. And if there have been 7 generations of humans going back 700, 800,000 years, maybe even longer, I think the extraterrestrials have been here longer than that. But us, the project, the experiment that they talk about started 700,000 years ago, 800,000, whatever it was. If there is any evidence of that, it's going to be in the forms of, like here in Sedona, the Red Rocks and the Grand Canyon. It looks, if you really look at them objectively, they look like temples and structures and buildings. I believe they were. I believe they were from one of the previous civilizations, the previous eras of humans that was destroyed in one of these great resets when they came and wiped out their own experiment and then reset us, right? You can see evidence of, meltology is one of these theories. Meltology is the theory that everything has been melted, and that's why a lot of these rocks quite literally look like they've been melted. And you see that in the Middle East and in the Southwest. And I think the Southwest is much more significant than we're ever told. I think they're maybe the cradle of humanity. Like there was something far more significant here. And it might have just been from one of the previous civilizations or previous eras of humans and doesn't really tie in directly to what we are. But there is, I'm sure there's still some connection and ancestral ties there. So, yeah, huge ley line grid. That's absolutely what this is. And getting into previous civilizations and stuff, there's a man that I know who lives not far from me. He's a quantum physicist who worked 40 years in the shadow government. He has an incredible story. I'm really trying to get him to speak publicly and talk, but he just won't do a video yet. He has information that no one else is sharing. But he worked with, he was in the Air Force, and then he was basically approached based on his test scores and his skills and abilities. He was a mechanic, actually. They brought him into the private sector, and it's a whole long story. But part of his training required him to go train with the Aboriginals on this planet in Egypt, Easter Island, and Australia. And not Egypt, I'm sorry, Africa, Easter Island, and Australia. And he had trained with these tribes because they never lost their innate ability to use telepathy, to teleport their physical body, and they utilized the Earth's natural portal system just like the Sasquatch do. And this is what he told me, because he spent 9 months with each tribe training, and the reason they were training him was because they needed him to be able to teleport his physical body, not just him, there's a team of guys. They needed them to be able to teleport their physical body from one location to the next. And really, they were trying to reverse engineer these wrecked UFOs, and they couldn't get inside of them because they didn't have doors and they didn't understand how they worked. So they quite literally sent guys around the world to train with the Aboriginals, to learn how to teleport their physical body, to come back underground, Area 51, wherever they're working, and quite literally teleport inside the craft so they can reverse engineer it. And he says they were successful. And that sounds nuts, but he swears up and down the Aboriginals have this ability and they use it all the time. He said they're in and out of dimensions. If a predator is coming, an animal or whatever, they know how to access the other dimensions and they can hide their family. He said they'll literally hide their family in another dimension while a predator is walking through, like a lion or something like that. And absolutely fascinating. But he told me while he was in Africa, some of the tribes aren't tribes anymore. He said they're wealthy billionaires that have private jets. They dress in these white suits, and they're very tall. And he said they are ancestors, or they claim to be descendants of Lemuria that are still here today. And they are tied in with the Great White Brotherhood. This is what he tells me. So he's claiming that there is a tribe in Africa that are quite literally extraterrestrial. They're Lemurians living amongst the people. They're very tall, wealthy. They're not a tribe like we're imagining, but they still call themselves a tribe. And they're directly connected with Mount Shasta as well. But we're talking about like Lemuria and stuff like that. Like, it didn't all disappear. Some of it's underground. Some of them are still on the surface in Africa. And according to Carrie Cassidy's book, her interviews with Mark Richards, who's a Navy whistleblower, he said Africa is one of the main countries that houses many extraterrestrial civilizations. And they have underground civilizations and safe havens for a number different groups of ETs in Africa. And one of them being these very, very tall African American, but they're Lemurian, actually, of a Lemurian descent. So it's really interesting. Like, all of this stuff is coming forward now about a completely different history on this planet. And we're still like bickering about some of these surface level issues, not understanding that maybe there's people in our government in the know. Maybe there is a faction of good-hearted people that are trying to stop this great reset from happening. And in fact, while Biden was in office, they were pushing for the great reset, not us having no idea that actually meant an actual reset, a nuclear holocaust that would send us back 1,000 years. I think that's what they had planned, but they were trying to get everybody to vote for this great reset, vote for their own demise, right? And that operation, fortunately for us, had been stopped. And I think that this whole thing in the Middle East right now is an attempt to disarm the enemy before they can use the nuclear weapons on us to destroy the planet and set us back. And maybe the extraterrestrial threat was never from outer space. Maybe it was always here. Maybe it is from outer space as well. I know there's a lot of beliefs surrounding what space is. The flat earthers think space is fake. But if space is fake, then you have to throw all of this history out the window that they don't want us to know about. And what better way to do that than convince everybody the earth is flat, space is fake, and we're trapped here. And if you do that, then if you become a flat earther and if you're of that belief, you literally throw out all of this information because it talks about space and extraterrestrials, and it doesn't fit. So they throw it out. And they want you to do that because if you can disconnect somebody from their true origins, they'll never be able to actually ascend out of that because they don't know who they are. And they'll always continue to be a slave. But if we remember who we are and how we got here and what this is and what this war being fought is really about, then we can actually rise above it. And we can set that intention. So, Elon literally did Nazi salute and was covered by him being on the spectrum. He addressed that many times. It was very questionable if that's what he did or not. In fact, that's an extraterrestrial greeting from the Andromedans or Arcturians. If you read these books, that's exactly like that. That Nazi salute is actually an extraterrestrial greeting, which is interesting. And it's been hijacked, obviously, for us to think it's something bad, just like the swastika was hijacked as well. The swastika really points to the Big Dipper. It's an astrological symbol that shows the Big Dipper in all four phases and in the true cardinal directions. And it's been inverted, obviously, just like everything has been on this planet. So, anyway, so I just saw that comment. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. That's all I wanted to do. I just kind of wanted to read through some of this stuff. And I know not everybody's out here reading these books like I am, if they even know about them. And I'm reading these books. I'm thinking to myself, this information can't stay in between these covers. It can't stay on these pages. Like, somebody has to be out here talking about this stuff, sharing it, putting these ideas out there just to help other people gain a new perspective on what's possibly happening here. I can't say that all this is true. I'm just connecting dots. As a researcher, I try to only cover stuff that I'm really strongly guided to cover and read even. I won't even read a book unless I'm actually really called to do it and there's something in it for me. And maybe not all of this information is true. It's highly possible. But we can't throw it out. I think we're at a point now where we have to consider everything, as crazy as it sounds. As crazy as it sounds. That's where we're at. So, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I just wanted to go through all this stuff. This replay will be available on my personal YouTube channel, Tyler Koala Unveiled. It'll also be available here. But I have a personal YouTube channel, Tyler Koala Unveiled, where I'm just taking these lives and I'm uploading them over there for people to watch the replays. And so also while I'm here, I guess I'll make a couple other announcements. Journey to Truth podcast, if you guys have been following us, we have a conference coming up in Hawaii. It's our 5th conference, April 20th through the 24th on the Big Island It is a conference/retreat. It's going to be amazing. We're going to get in the water and swim and snorkel, potentially with dolphins and whales. I can't technically swim with dolphins legally in Hawaii, so we'll see how that goes. We're not going to push our luck, but we'll be going to Volcano National Park and some other sacred sites. We have a great lineup of speakers. JourneyToTruth.online is where you can find all that information. And if you can't make it in person, we have live stream passes available for only $55. And if you would like to join Journey to Truth's Patreon, we have a $5 tier and a $10 tier. Tier 2, we just started. It basically is, we're going to do monthly Zoom calls with anyone who signs up to Tier 2 members. It'll be a Q&A, just discussion, a hangout with Aaron and I. And it's not going to be like a live Q&A where we're just answering questions from the chat. You'll actually be face-to-face with us in the Zoom call. And we'll just have some fun, tell some stories, just cover whatever comes up and just hang out with you guys. So that's pretty cool. And we have a brand new documentary that just came out, Secret Space Program documentary, A Lifetime of Silence Behind the Green Door. That's available on our Patreon or our website right now for $15. It's on its way to the streaming platforms. It just passed quality control and it's out there waiting to be accepted by platforms like Amazon Prime, Tubi, Roku, Hulu, all that. So whenever it gets picked up and it's on a streaming platform, we'll let you know. We're very excited about that. But if you want to watch it, it was a 3-year project, very ambitious project, building a case for the secret space program in a way that's never been done. JourneyToTruth.online is where you can find all that stuff. So thank you guys all for being here today. I love you. Can't do this without you. And until next time, have a great evening. Good night or good day. I'm autopilot. Or good night.